Parents, did you know that within 15 to 20 minutes, your child can be targeted by a predator online?
What?
That's all it takes.
That's disgusting.
This is Teachers Talk. Welcome. Today we will discuss, should social media be illegal for children? I'm Candace Falberti.
I'm Angela Stevens.
I'm Kim Hunter, and I'm arguing for making it illegal until a child is 16 years old. That's my stance. That's my opinion.
Right. So you're saying that what should be illegal? Like for them to watch this right now on YouTube? Hi, students and supporters. Like you're saying they shouldn't be allowed to check in on us or have YouTube accounts. What are we saying? Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok. What are we going to make illegal?
That's a good question. And I'm going to say TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat. I think also, honestly, I think Facebook, YouTube, I think everything should be illegal until a child is 16 years old. And that's because of their lack of brain development, of the prefrontal cortex. I mean, we have rules and laws. We have rules and laws for children. They can't get a driver's license till they're 16. And that's because their brain is not fully developed and they are going to continue to make poor decisions. They're impulsive. And it's not, the prefrontal cortex is not developed fully until on average about 25 years of age. So if we're going to protect children from driving and being impulsive, and we know that they're going to make poor decisions, they're very emotional, especially during puberty, why would we allow them to be on social media where they are just bombarded with information and ideas, good and bad?
Do you think that age is a determination of maturity?
Yes, most of the time.
So you think a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old are always at different maturity levels, or is it possible that there are 13-year-olds that are more mature than some 17-year-olds?
Absolutely. Some are more mature, some are not. But what's happening now is not working. And we see it in the schools. I see it in the schools, the impact of social media. I've been to church services where they talk about fear of missing out. I mean, we talk about the health of children. FOMO, exactly. Fear of missing out. And people, we've talked about it as teachers, as instructors, that we continuously compare ourselves to other people. I mean, this is bringing it down to children who are 7, 8, 9, 10 years old on social media, already involved in comparing themselves and being exposed to too much information. And what you talked about, Candace, was, putting themselves at risk of child predators.
So
it doesn't make sense to me. We have childhood depression, suicide rates are up. The kids are too vulnerable and immature to handle it. And we see their responses in the classroom. We've never had to teach SEL before. Like, we've never had to do that. And it's, I think, because of the impact of COVID, students were at home, parents couldn't monitor their children, and the boom of TikTok and social media is damaging and hurting our children.
Angie, what do you have to say about that? She's, letting us know how things are right now. We know that the kids can register for an account if they're 13 or over, but, kids kind of make things up or log in anyway.
Okay, so let's kind of go in order. So the first thing that she talks about predominantly is brain development.
Okay.
If we're going to restrict or make it illegal for someone to not be able to be allowed on social media based on brain development, then we're going to have to consider atrophy for elderly populations who are also being abused online and socially. So elderly populations also have issues with brain development. And we know that after 50, they have cognitive decline. And we know that they are targeted for all kinds of abuse, online identity theft, mortgage problems. And so they are actually being targeted in a very similar way. So for me, the answer is not outlawing people or making it illegal to be on social media. The answer for me is looking at social media as a public place and regulating it the same way you would a public place. So we don't say because a kid gets bullied at schools, we should shut down all schools or make schools illegal. What we say is if there are bullies at schools, we have to start creating regulations and teaching things like SEL to teach people how to interact in a public setting. And the problem, I think, is when we're not treating social media as a public setting and we're not maintaining the same regulations. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would add to this that's really important is to remember that places like TikTok especially have really strong, good parent controls. So when your student or your child signs up for an account, TikTok kind of has the model of this. They have parent controls. And if the kids try to go in and mess with the parent controls at all, the parents immediately get notified. And because TikTok is starting to set the standard in that, Snapchat and Instagram are following. And so parents need to be responsible in utilizing parent controls. And I don't think that that is the job of the government. I think that is the job of the parent. The next thing about talking about fear of missing out, I don't think that fear of missing out is in any way unique to our 13-year-old kids. I think I have fear of missing out when I'm away from my family. And I think that that's a genuine problem for all of us to talk about with social media, but I don't think it's a reason to make social media illegal. Then we got into, she commented on 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10-year-olds. And again, I would just go back to the law says you have to be 13. So if kids, and Candace, you kind of doubled down on that, but we already have regulations. It is already illegal for them to be doing that. So if it can't be enforced, then I would argue that the whole debate today is mute. Because then we're just saying that you can't enforce kids lying about their age on social media. So why make it illegal? If there's no way to enforce it, if 7, 8, and 9, and 10-year-olds are already getting on there and that's already illegal, then there's no reason to make something illegal that we can't enforce. So that brings up a deep question about enforcement. Could we actually enforce this? Why would we? And then I would just like to point out that currently 95% of all kids 13 or older have smartphones. 95% of their parents have given them smartphones. 91% of all kids are on the internet at least once a day. TikTok alone has 61% of users at the 13 category. And by the time they're 16, that's up to 71%. And Snapchat right now has as high as 51% of users. Although I will give to you, Kim, that the Surgeon General agrees that 13 is too young. And so we could talk about what kind of regulations we could do for that.
So and Angie, you mentioned that TikTok and a lot of these social media companies, they have this requirement that the kids have to be 13 in order to have an account. Kim, would you like to see that changed to a higher age, or what are you looking for?
I would like to see it changed to a higher age, definitely. And something like the 13-year-old age has kind of been arbitrary. And that 13-year-old age right now is because of a 1998, the Children's Online Privacy Act was passed, and where social media companies could not collect or distribute data on children. But I think based on the science and brain development, again, I'm going to go back to that they're impulsive and very emotional, that they're being exposed to information. And yes, I'm sorry, parents, if I offend you, but I wish parents would do a better job at monitoring their children. I wanted to say that, yes, that I think the social media companies need to be held to a higher standard on protecting children from predators, because that's what we opened with, Candace, was with predators. And within 15 minutes, if they can get on, that's a huge safety concern. And I am concerned about our children's social emotional well-being. And again, we see it heightened in the schools, the issues that we're having, and the students' behaviors, their suicide rates, their depression. The teens and young children so want to fit in that they are making bad choices just so that they do fit in, or they're under peer pressure. Again, I'd like social media companies to be held to a higher standard. And something that I do know about TikTok, whatever parental controls they have or not, they are targeting other countries. The media that they put on TikTok, the videos and the challenges they put on TikTok are much different than what they allow in their own country. And that's problematic to me.
Are you talking about
So they're-
because China,
They're
TikTok
targeting
is
certain behaviors and exposing our children in other countries in the US that they are not exposing their children to.
So there were a lot of things that you just brought up regarding legal and parents and who's responsible. Angie, what do you have to say about that?
well, I mean, let's kind of go down the list. So first, we're talking about a lot about social emotional learning and the need for students to fit in. And while I think that that is absolutely natural and normal and a healthy part of especially 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, this is kind of when we go through this developmentally. Social media definitely plays off of this heightened need to fit in. Like you're talking about the emotions. I think all of that is absolutely true. And I do concede that TikTok had many challenges that caused schools to be actually destroyed. The taxpayers paid lots and lots of money for destroyed bathrooms and chairs, and even some teachers were harmed from TikTok's challenges. So I totally agree. My solution would be to sue those companies and hold them accountable. So my solution is not to make
to
social
sue
media illegal.
The contributors who were promoting it. Is that what you're saying?
I believe that you should be allowed to sue the contributors, and if they're under 16, their parents. But I also believe you should be allowed to sue the social media company that allows that to happen in their public space. So if you were to come to my ranch to ride horses with me, and it's a public space that I'm hosting it, and an accident happens, like one person pushes another person off a horse, I'm liable to be sued for that. I don't have protection. So why does TikTok and Snapchat and Facebook have protection when they allow that kind of thing to happen in their public space? And I think just opening them up to lawsuits will not only protect our teenagers, I think it would protect our elderly as well. Now, this is not probably going to work because the tech companies have major amounts of money and political influence, and most of our politicians are corrupt. But if politicians truly did want to protect us in safe spaces, there's no reason that social media sites couldn't be sued and held accountable when they breach our kids' trust for especially those toxic challenges that you're talking about. When you talk about emotional health like depression and suicide, there's a higher correlation between depression and suicide with just screen time than there is necessarily social media. So you see high rates of suicidation, for example, in the state of Utah and in the North. And so we see high levels of that associated with lack of sunlight, but I've never seen any data that would directly link social media to those things. So while I think they're a problem of us staying inside and sitting on screens, I think our schools are guilty of that. I think our schools hand them technology and ask them to sit on their screens for homework instead of pen and pencil and being outside and interactive. So I don't see that unique to social media. But we do have to talk about predators. And I feel again that my solution would hold. If a predator was able to find a child within 15 seconds and that 15 minutes, I say seconds.
That's quick.
And that's right.
Yeah.
Then I think if we could sue the company, then there are going to be a lot more checks, and AI is going to be a lot more effective at finding those predators than we give them credit for. We have the technology for public spaces like that to be able to check identities and scan and shut down the people who are trying to scam our children. I think if we just put the pressure on the tech companies, they can create safe spaces for kids.
Kim, do you feel that AI could actually be a solution for this? Do you feel like we could trust AI to protect our kids?
It depends on who's running the AI. AI is right
Touche.
now collecting data and targeting our children for advertising and collecting their data. So it depends who's in charge and who's running it and what the parameters are set for it to control.
So how would you see that monitoring and protecting our kids, Angie? What do you think?
Oh, I'm sorry.
we-
Can I
No,
interrupt?
no.
Yeah, interrupt.
I want to say that, oh my God, what was I going to say? Social media already monitors adults and people with things they say, whether you're,
Mhm.
liberal or conservative.
Mhm.
I know many people have been cut off of social media because of a comment they made,
Mhm.
or been attacked verbally with comments because of something they said. But social media already is monitoring comments and actions on a political basis.
Mhm.
How come they aren't doing it for our children?
Mhm.
That's my question, and that is my concern. They are the most vulnerable.
And the algorithm, like you said, is right now pro-capitalism. And even the arguments, as I prepared for this debate, are I'm supposed to be saying things like it builds self-confidence, it helps kids learn entrepreneurial skills, it helps kids see other role models of people who do extraordinary things like music and athletics. And so it helps kids mentor other kids. But a lot of that is just based around this mindset of making money and becoming entrepreneurs, becoming confident, interacting with the world. And I think that's just the counter argument to the idea that it's FOMO and depression and like all of that. But I think the deeper question is the algorithm could be causing harm. So currently, on Kim's side, there's a lot of data to suggest if I have ADHD and I'm on the algorithm and I'm talking about focus, it will actually send me things to distract me. In fact, if I type in I'm feeling depressed, it will start to send me not just things to help with my depression, but things that match my mood, because that's how the algorithms work, because AI runs, like you're talking, social media now. So what it would need is an overhaul where we actually don't match the mood all the time. So if you're depressed, I don't necessarily only give you depressing things, right? But it would have to be calculating in the way that it alerts people or asks for help.
Do you feel that, Kim, do you feel that like matching that's already going on is part of the reason why our social media is so damaging to the kids today?
Yes, because it is social media is making suggestions for our kids what they watch, and tunneling. I forget, it's making recommendations for our students on what they should watch. And being on campus, we've had to make campus changes, no cell phones, because we kept having fights because kids are posting things on social media, being nasty to each other, and then videotaping fights and then sharing it and propagating that type of behavior. So, social media is going to monitor politics, which I think we really need to have conversations and debates like we are right now, because honestly, I do agree with some of what Angie says. Yes, it makes sense, but we have to be able to have conversations. But when you're as adults, but as children and the elderly, they do need some protection. And if their parents aren't protecting them, it's a fine line on where the government steps in and says it's illegal. I know some states have banned TikTok. They have,
Montana.
and how are they going to monitor it? We can't even monitor drugs and weapons in the prisons. But just because you can't monitor something doesn't mean we should give up on the idea of, in this case, helping protect our students.
Well,
Do
I'm not
we
sure you
have-
can't monitor on the big level. Sorry, Candace.
No, that's fine. I was just wondering because you brought up that Montana and other states have banned it or they have legal prevention. Is there evidence that that has made a difference?
No,
I
I checked.
don't think so, and I think it's just recently happened, and I think TikTok
Yeah.
is suing the state of Montana
Mhm.
for passing that law.
I think we'll see it in Wyoming too. One of the things though that I think is important when you're talking about implementation. So let's just go back to the idea of fights and sharing. Okay, we're in a technological world where they'll just text each other. They'll just get WhatsApp. That it's not like social media. Social media is just a way for connection. It's not like our kids can't create their own apps. Our kids know how to do this better than we do. So to make it illegal, unless we're going after big corporations who are allowing predators to prey upon our children and not putting safety checks, at which point that is our government's job to keep us safe. And if they cannot create regulations that keep our children safe, they should be fired. You shouldn't be allowed to pollute a river or your drinking water because that is our job. And certainly they should be able to keep our children and our elderly safe from social media companies who are preying upon us with algorithms that just want to steal our money and not actually create information and a safe public location for us to share ideas.
I agree.
Go ahead.
I agree.
Oh, you agree. Okay. Okay.
But to that point, so switching sides, if you are on Kim's side, going back to our debate today, maybe if every state said, here are the laws, and if you're not going to follow them, we are going to make it illegal. We are going to shut you down in our country. Then they are going to spend more time and attention.
What would that look like?
Money and
Like with the states that have already like changed the laws, what does that look like for them to hold the parent responsible
the parent or the actual company?
or the company?
Or the
I'm not familiar with the laws that are in effect in Montana or
So I don't know exactly how each state law would work. I can't speak to that. I haven't done the research, but from my understanding, and this is very generic, and please, if you know more than we do, which I'm sure you do in the comments about this, share, explain, jump in. We really want your opinions. This is just an opening debate to get the conversation started about what we should do. But my understanding is that our internet services are what provide, providers, like if you were to get HBO or Netflix or anything else, it goes through an internet provider. So the internet providers could ban those sites.
Okay. And is that what they're doing?
I don't
in
know.
the States?
I don't know the details of what
I
they're
don't
doing.
either. I don't either.
And I don't know if it's just in word only, because like I live in Pocatello, Idaho. It's a law you're supposed to smile here.
What?
It's a law in my city that we're smile capital of the world I was raised in that you're supposed to smile
All the time?
all the time, honey, all the time. So I've
There's
been breaking
no
the
bad
law
days in
right
Pocatello.
now. I don't know if they've changed it, but when I was a kid, I was growing up, you live in the smile capital, and like that was the thing, like we smiled. Okay, right. So if you know me, I actually smile all the time, and now you might be like, oh, she was like,
You didn't tell us that when we came up there. I don't know if we violated the law.
That's right. You came to my ranch and visited my horses, and I don't know if you smiled the whole time. Because enforcement is a legitimate issue. Now they can hit them with taxes, right? That could shut them down. They could fine them. It could be as simple as, if you broadcast into the state, we're going to fine you. Like the government has ways of shutting these things down. If we can keep Chinese intel and spies out, we certainly can decide. But I do know this because I have some friends, I have many friends actually who work for the government who are not allowed because of their security, like clearances, to have certain apps. Like TikTok is a no, like what Kim was saying. So I wonder why we can all have it if they can't. And I'm thinking if it's a good idea for us to, I wish the government would like say, these are the sites that we don't want our employees
We
with
don't support.
yeah,
I'm sure there's a list somewhere, right?
I think we should find it if we can for Flair and add it below so that
Yeah.
everyone can look and be like, oh, stay off that, because I feel like it's a public service announcement to know, that certain types of government clearances can't go to certain sites. So that's all I've got on that. Anyone want to add?
Hey, that's interesting.
Right? And to
Would've
think
never
about
thought. Mhm.
our government could shut them down, even just with fines and taxes. They could make it so miserable to operate.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I would do it if I was going to make it illegal. But like I said, I don't actually think the route of being illegal works, because I think the kids will just keep creating new apps. I just think they'll
And
keep
there is
creating
such a
new
thing
ways.
as freedom of speech, right?
Yeah.
But how, again, I'm gonna go back, how free is our speech when some of the social media sites are shutting people down because they don't like their statements or their political agenda? We've had,
Oh, I would love, let's write that down and do this as another debate for freedom of speech, because I've kind of stayed away from that one. But I think that would be a really good debate to have, like how much speech should kids have? And we could talk about Tinker in Des Moines, which is the freedom of speech case for minors specifically. But I think specifically for social media, one of the things we didn't touch on that I want to make a strong argument for is minors don't have rights. They are not considered legal full citizens. They can't vote. You talked about driving, but they do have their rights under their parents. So they can't drive the car, but they're allowed to be in the car. And one of the big problems was saying that you're going to make this topic saying that social media should be banned for minors or illegal for minors is that you're infringing on the parents' right, not just for them to decide where their kid can go in the car with them, which is their right, because technically, legally, they're still their property until they've been neglected or abused or something. And I know that sounds horrible, but that's actually how our system has been set up.
Yeah.
But also, many, many parents use their own social media sites and their children in social media as part of marketing. And you have child actors. So if you're going to keep children off of social media, you could be economically disadvantaging large groups of people who make their money as actors, musicians, public speakers. Like, there's a significant amount of people who use social media for their family's revenue, and even the parents, like parenting channels. And the other thing is, a lot of social media, like YouTube, is famous for great information and does have a lot of regulation about where kids can be and what they can be on, and does have, shout out to YouTube for that.
Mhm.
That they do try to create a safe public space, and every video we upload, they ask if it's made for children, because they are trying to control the algorithm in that way. Now, can we encourage that on other sites and get more regulations? For sure. But I do think there is some responsiveness that we're seeing from some companies.
Yeah, and I think YouTube wasn't the issue, but I think they've kind of set a model that we can follow with other companies in how to protect our children. Because even they have like the YouTube Kids and the YouTube Teach, like they have different parts of it. Do you feel
Mhm.
like that could maybe be a solution, Kim? Where they kind of like make a separate app for kids?
yeah, I think that would work, but again, only as long as the parents are, I don't want to control what parents do and don't do. They're children, but the negative I think it would be smart to find a way to limit the negativity and the exposure to certain things, risks that children are exposed to on a day-to-day basis it needs to be addressed. And I do think holding the companies accountable would be the first way to go,
And I feel like it's something we can start right now by having meaningful conversations with our kids. I think right now, if you have a student or a child, any kid starting, I would say 6 to 18, just having a basic conversation about You would never have a conversation online and say anything you wouldn't say in front of mom and dad or in front of your teacher. If anyone asks you any kind of question that you think would bother mommy or would upset, your teacher or your grandparents or, whoever is their kind of sensitivity police, you need to tell us right away. And I think we have to be really culturally responsible in the classroom. And so
I
in the
agree.
modern age, we've got to be better. And that's why we have to teach SEL, and tech responsibility has to be a huge part of SEL. And the risk of even having our faces out there right now for deep fakes or all kinds of things that they can do. Being on social media is a risk, just like driving a car. I love that analogy you made, Kim. Just like driving a car is a risk. There are risks that happen when you make that choice. There are freedom, but there are risks.
Right. And with freedom comes responsibility.
Yeah, I love that.
And
Spider-Man for the win.
Just like Spider-Man, almost like Spider-Man.
I know before you were at our school, Angie, we used to teach our sixth graders social media awareness. And I think that should be part of the school curriculum to try to help curb this, we know all the kids are not going to follow the recommendations, but putting it out there and letting them know, it should be part of our SEL curriculum, and we need to put it back in.
I think it would be really helpful to also offer that for parents. And so
absolutely, that was my next, yes.
That's what's tricky is, as a parent of 3 kids under 16, it's really difficult to know. Like, you can't be on top of every single new app that comes out, but there are parental controls. But if you're not actively seeking them, things can really get out of hand. And so providing like workshops or information or open conversation with parents of the kids at your school, I think would do a lot to help keep them more aware so they can have those discussions, even if it's just like, how the principals send out like a weekly email, even if it was like questions you can discuss with your children this week at home, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and everything on social media is changing so quickly, so it would be a great thing to do, to set up some sort of system that would be alerts for parents, like, and for teachers and for kids, these as they come out, where we had maybe a shared platform where as things change, we could list those websites, and parents, everybody would have access.
How realistic is that, though?
That should be the job of the Department of Education. That is exactly
a big job.
It is a huge job, but that would be the job of the Department of Education, because we're talking about somebody who would have to have federal access with that kind of information, and somebody who would know threats within a reasonable, so they'd have to have access to like actual intel. So we're looking at an executive branch level area, but I think it's a reasonable request. It happens on our food. It's huge, but every salmonella outbreak that happens in any random restaurant, what happens? We all get an update. It's raspberries this week, peanut butter this week. Why is it any lettuce? Yeah.
Why can't we set up a system to help protect our children?
They're doing it with food, and we're consuming food. It's the same kind of thing. They're going to have to get good at doing. That's their job. They expect us to do impossible things every day. They can do some impossible things too. Maybe if they were so busier with that, they'd be less busy telling us what to do.
Give them more work to do.
I feel like
well, I'm not prepped to put this list together, but there should be some system in place and to help protect the kids and keep parents and families and teachers, adults aware.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be ongoing.
We know the kids are finding out the names of these apps faster than the adults are. So maybe it needs to be a child related to the Department of Education.
I love it. Make them spies.
Child spy.
they get $20 every time they find one that they think is nefarious. It would make them problem solvers, and it would
Right.
fulfill that entrepreneurial spirit, and they'd probably catch them fast. Like $20
Oh,
every
they'd be
time
way
they-
faster.
they would, and if they could make
Yeah.
money catching it, and like they'd have a mission, and they'd be all over. I believe our kids could do it if we
They
set up the right.
could, they could.
Yeah, no,
But
that's.
that's the problem. They already know about it and
Mhm.
they're already there.
But if they were incentivized and they were looking for it, and they're like, "Oh, my friend just made $20 catching this creeper guy. I want to catch some." Like
Oh,
they would tell.
Pretend.
I believe.
they would.
I
They-
believe that that would give them a reason to voice it. And here's the other thing it would give them: if they were screwed up and they got tricked into something, a lot of times because of the shame and the guilt, they won't admit what happened. But if
Mhm.
they started to get nervous, they could say, "Oh, I was looking and I found this. I think I've got help me." And it could be a safe way for them to ask for help.
Mhm.
So
And to
even though
get
I know
out of
this sounds like a crazy idea, I think knowing our kids and technology and their if your values are to like keep that entrepreneurial spirit going and keep them engaged in like being law-abiding citizens, it would be a very interesting way to turn the tables instead of them just doing stupid challenges about ruining our chairs and destroying our
Right.
bathrooms.
And
But they
hitting
need
teachers,
access to
smacking
the,
teachers. Yeah.
yeah, but they would need access. So then that kind of,
I don't think they would need access. They would just need a place to report. And then if the report turned out to be true, they'd get paid.
no, I mean, they'd need access to social media.
Oh, right. So that
We
means
wouldn't be able to.
I would win the debate and social
Yeah.
media.
Because I love that idea. So
So I won. Do I win?
I think so. And we need child identifiers, secret spies.
Yeah, there we are.
Secret
There's-
spies,
I
secret
hope some of
child
our
spies
students are
the
watching
solution.
this and are like, "I'd be a spy. I'll make
Right?
money. Like, I'll set it up." Like, I hope they are. We
I
can teach you
know
how to
that
keep us safe.
there are videos of like sting operations where people go in and they, text or email or open up a conversation with a minor, and then they end up meeting at the park, and they bring the parent, and the parent's like, "My child would never do this. My child would
And
never
they
do
did,
this.
yeah.
I know I've had these conversations." And then the child shows up at the park with a stranger,
Mhm.
and it's like a
Right.
coming to Jesus experience for the parents. They're like praised that their child would be so vulnerable. But I go back to the brain development and emotion, underdeveloped emotions and decision-making abilities.
Good. I like that. I
that
like how
they're gonna do that, even though we talk to them.
Mhm.
And that's the sad truth.
I love that, because now you're not blaming anyone. You're talking about basic development, and we're getting away from this ridiculous blame game to actually creating, like, we don't blame a baby for crawling off a table. We don't put them on the table.
Right.
We're not like walking around like, "Baby, how did you not know?" Like,
Right.
but I think you're correct in that we are not being honest about, yeah, you win. But I'm not making it
I
illegal.
win.
No, that was just a good point. No, but I love that it's so easy to blame people for everything because you can feel empowered through that sometimes.
I think we have a really serious blame toxicity problem
Hmm.
where at all levels, in all occupations, I think it's so easy to blame instead of to take a deep breath and see the truth behind it, like Kim was, which is it's brain development, it's environment,
Yeah.
it's circumstances. Anybody can screw up. Now, how do we create a society where people make healthy choices? How do we keep each other
Mhm.
safe? How do we foster positivity? And I think blame is just never the answer.
Right. And provide an avenue for kids to redeem themselves and to find
And
a
even
way
adults
to
in
talk
some
about things.
in
And
some
adults. Yeah.
yeah. Because I see a lot of adults blaming adults in education. And
Yeah.
sometimes for
Like
really
all the
dumb
time.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. And in parenting and in general society. It's everywhere.
Yeah. And I think we all screw up. None of our brains are super healthy.
There's a million things going on all the time.
Right. And so we are all doing the best we can, or at least hopefully. I mean, I'm not saying
Mhm.
everyone, but most people. And I feel like I just love being surrounded by you guys and the Flair. Everyone at Flair, thank you. If you're still watching, you're amazing. Thank you to our support, because you are the people who inspire me and take accountability and help us move forward. And hopefully you enjoyed this debate today, right?
So please let us know what your thoughts are and what side of the debate you're on in the comments below. If you
I say in the middle, in the middle.
Would you be a child spy? Would you want your children to be child spy? No,
yeah, if you want to sign up for the child spy programs for of education.
Your daughter and my niece are going to be like me.
I'll do it. Oh my goodness.
I love it.
Thank you so much for joining us. And leave a comment. Let us know.
And if you're not a subscriber, please like and subscribe.
Oh, please like and subscribe. Please encourage other people to like and subscribe. We have a dream of getting to 500 subscribers, so please help us out.
Yes, please do. All right. Have a great day, everybody. See you next time.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. We're Flair educators.
Because we care.